Big Red in attendance on tonight's National Racing Report. We're happy you have found us on MSG Plus as we set sail from the starting gate on a breezy Sunday morning at beautiful Belmont Park. It is starting to feel like the Fall Championship meet out here. Jason Blewitt, Andy Serling, Richard Migliore chasing the pace on the outside. 11 races, 6 tracks, and a lot to cover tonight.
You're like the old stalwart. You're always here. Richie and I weren't here last week. This is our homecoming back to Belmont Park.
No, it is, and we got a breezy day. It's just cooling off, but not as cool as it was in Canada last weekend.
No.
Well, we saw a nice edition of the Woodbine Mile with Mondialiste. I think that's how you pronounce it. A sharp effort out of him. And we have plenty of turf, speaking of a race in high regard like the Woodbine Mile on the grass, and that's where we are going. Kicking off the show was Saturday's featured 8th race, the Noble Damsel. Of course, nobody has hit the pick 6 over the last 4 cards. And Recepta, one of many upsets on the program, Elvis Trujillo, the winning rider.
Just a great job by Jimmy Toner. What's interesting about this horse, and someone want to make an excuse for Lady Laura because she went 5 wide. Well, Recepta went 4 wide, so you can't make an excuse for Lady Laura and the whole stretch to get by. Is her first turf, her turf debut at a mile at Belmont Park as a 2-year-old was a smashing performance, and she looked like she was going to be a horse to watch. She came back as a 3-year-old, had a sort of a very short campaign, obviously some issues, but she's starting to put it together at 4, and it's great to see.
It is great to see, and that is a credit to Jimmy Toner. He has done a tremendous job, not just with this filly, but with generations of this family. And, we actually got to speak to Jimmy after the race, and he was talking about his relationship with the Phillips and having trained this horse's mother and siblings. Recepta definitely has the look of a filly, though, that has been steadily improving, and it was good with her pedigree to see her get that graded win because it really enhances her value.
Oh, yeah, she's got a lot of value, no doubt about it. It's also nice to see Elvis Trujillo, who didn't get a lot of opportunities at Saratoga, made the most of what he's gotten, and he's been winning some races. He won a couple of races at Belmont on Saturday, and he did everything right with her, sat behind, made the move. I mean, his hand is forced when Lady Laura goes. He has to go inside of her, and he gave Lady Laura all she could handle. Lady Laura ran well. Recepta was just better, don't you think, Jay?
Yeah, dug it very gamely here, and she's been a filly by Speightstown who's done it all. She's run well on the dirt, or did run well on the dirt earlier in her career, but she has found her calling for the Phillips Racing Partnership and Jimmy Toner on the grass. For Jimmy Toner, his second career win in the Noble Damsel, following the Mighty Wonder again back in 03 for the Phillips as well.
Yeah, he's had so much success with these horses, and because he's a very good trainer. Lady Laura ran a race. Thought this was a nice effort by these horses. Wonder if they're horses that'll point to the matriarch later in the year at Hollywood Park. A mile seems to be their specialty, and the one-turn miles suit these horses perfectly.
Yeah, it would seem like the most logical spot. Maybe you could pick up grade 1 black type. But I agree with you. Lady Laura had every opportunity. They were a half length apart coming to the 8th pole. They were a half length apart at the wire. And I'm not so sure they weren't a half length apart on the gallop out. She just kind of had her measured and held her at bay.
No, I completely agree. And I say that having needed Lady Laura. That Recepta was best. She was the best horse in this race. And it's really a tribute to Jimmy because the win she had in Saratoga when she beat Tutti Passi, who, to put it in perspective, was last in this race, they both had very good trips in the De La Rose. And Recepta had to take another step forward to beat these horses. And I don't think it's a case of Lady Laura and Coffee Click taking a step back. Though Coffee Click is not as good as she was last year. I think it's a question of Recepta taking a step forward.
Yeah, no, I agree with all that. And I still think there's another step forward in Recepta.
We'll
I think she's been a filly that's steadily improving and kind of has the pedigree on the dam side that says the older she gets, the better she'll be.
Well, hopefully she'll run more races, and maybe she'll run next year. That would be terrific.
And certainly a lot of the Darby Dan, the old school Darby Dan, bloodlines and foundation on the female bottom side of all those Phillips homebreds, right?
So many of those horses. Darby Creek Road involved with those horses. Did you ever ride Darby Creek Road?
No, I never rode. I wasn't riding yet, but it was
79, right? Yeah.
Angel Cordero actually chose him over Affirmed. That's a 2-year-old because he was so big and imposing, and it looked like he was going to be the next thing. Wow. I guess Angel guessed wrong that time.
Well, he was third, I think, a distant third of the Belmont Stakes after Believe It had been third of those two in the 2 prior races. He did set a track record, 7 furlongs, though, at Saratoga.
We'll get back to Belmont Park. In fact, that's where we end the show. Race number 11, the 2-year-old maiden opener on Saturday's card. But here we go down to Parks. They had their one day in the spotlight and $1 million purse, grade 2 status in the Pennsylvania Derby, a race we'll pick up from the starting gate. And it's been a case and a theme we have seen recurring throughout the year. You get away from the mighty American Pharaoh, and you wound up winning a graded stakes.
Yeah, I was annoyed to hear different racing fans saying that Frosted was a hanger and, you know, he just doesn't seal the deal. And it's like, yeah, I know, it's tough. You're hanging behind American Pharoah. It's just so ridiculous. And the thing that I found most satisfying about this race was that he came back 3 weeks after a very taxing effort in the Travers, delivered a sensational performance in getting it done here. These horses can come back on relatively short rest. Good horses run well all the time.
I can't disagree with anything you just said. I thought he had a beautiful trip. He was always in the bridle. Joel Rosario gave him a great ride, but Kieran McLaughlin gave him the vehicle. I mean, he was in the bridle. It was like driving a car, Jason. He was just basically steering until they turned for home, and then he just asked him enough to get the
So
victory.
confident. This was a race at around the 3/8 pole midway on the turn. You knew Rosario was locked and loaded, and it really did appear, even in 2020 hindsight, it was going to be a case of just how far will it be for Frosted, who's been solid all year long. Solid 2-year-old, ran so well against that gold rail in the Remsen last Holiday Fest at Aqueduct, won the TwinSpires.com Wood Memorial, and here you go. The proof is in the pudding, and another Grade 2 winner for Tappan.
No, I agree. I think you said everything there, Jay. He's just been very, very good this year. Let's give some credit to Jerry Hollendorfer, on the runner-up in this race, Iron Fist, a horse who had been mired down towards the inside last time in Mountaineer, and was the wide movers from that race that did well. They didn't do well in this race, but I thought Iron Fist ran very, very well. I mean, they finished a city block clear, the third horse and the others.
They came home the last 8th and 12 flat on the dirt. There was a lot of separation, 8 lengths back to the third-place finisher, Tommy Macho. He ran his race. Frosted was the best, and I like this horse a lot. I think, like you guys alluded to, American Pharoah's kind of in a different zone, and if you think about Frosted taking it to him as hard as he did, and it set things up for Keen Ice last time, but I think it underscores basically how good this 3-year-old crop is.
I agree. I'm so sick of hearing people saying, they said before American Pharoah, and as you know, I'm not American Pharoah's. I don't wave the pom-poms for him, but they said, you know, what a good crop it was before the Triple Crown. Then you hear all this talk that he's beating nobody. It's absolute nonsense. These are genuinely good horses, and I think they're showing it all the time. The people who think the 3-year-old crop behind American Pharoah isn't a good one aren't really paying attention, Richie.
I agree. They're not really paying close attention. These are good horses. The disappointment was Upstart.
He didn't run his race.
What's
Richie.
going on with him?
I don't know. You know, I feel like I'm a defender of his, and maybe it's because he's New York bred and we're New York guys. He's run some good races. He's a horse that did not bounce back from the Travers, and he's not. Obviously, he's not as good as Frosted. I mean, it's Frosted, but he's not as bad as he ran this race.
What do you think? Maybe chasing American Pharoah twice, once in the Haskell, then back in the Travers, and now back here. Maybe that took its toll?
Two very tough spots for him, obviously, post-Kentucky Derby, but he just hasn't seemed like the same horse since he left Gulfstream Park way back when.
I agree, and perhaps they'll end up taking the rest of the year off with him. I have a thought. Run him the Cigar Mile. What if they give him a couple of months off and they point to a turn back at a mile around one turn at Aqueduct? Wouldn't that suit him perfectly where he could make a long, sustained run?
It's not a bad idea. I think I might have a better idea. How about the Empire Classic back against New York Reds?
Well, I mean, that's a thought, but the Cigar Mile is a lot. I don't think the Empire Classic does anything for Upstart. Cigar Mile does a lot.
Well, I think it does something for him. His confidence. Like a fighter. Fighter gets knocked out. You don't want to put him in with somebody who can knock him out again. You want to let him be the boss. Let him be the boss and rebuild off of it.
We'll see if Rick Fowler takes a look at the state
Cigar
breds.
Mile.
Well, Cigar Mile, you do catch most of those Breeders' Cup horses off a peak effort a month earlier, so we'll see what Rick Fowler does, and I would imagine Frosted has got his ticket punched to the Breeders' Cup Classic as we punch our ticket right back down 95 South and a look back at the 3-year-old fillies in Saturday's cotillion. Back at Belmont Park, again, 2-year-olds. We had a good-looking colt by Tappan purchased for just $2.2 million, ringing the Saturday card. Mohayman for Shadwell Stables and Kieran McLaughlin. That is where we cap the show, but a good race not to get too far ahead of ourselves.
No, that is a good race to talk about. They've got a lot of good races going on this weekend. I think the fall is filled with good races. Obviously, a lot of big races here at Belmont Park, but interesting races all around the country.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I'm excited to talk about that 2-year race because I thought we saw 3 colts that could have a future.
All right, let's head back down to Parks. $1 million. They're only grade 1 of the season with 3-year-old fillies. And that big matchup, or rematch, I should say, off the Alabama between Embellish the Lace and I'm a Chatterbox never materialized. This was I'm a Chatterbox in a different zone.
If Embellish the Lace is going to be successful, she needs to control the race on the front end. It was not going to be the case with Calamity Jane. Edgar Prada rode her perfectly. At this point, I'm thinking after this win that maybe I'm a Chatterbox is the leader of this 3-year-old filly division. She is the one that has consistently been good throughout the year because even when she's lost, Richie, she's always run well.
I agree. I think she is the leader of this division as of this point. I thought, you think about the coaching club, high speed, on the lead, wins it, disqualified. Then she comes back in the Alabama.
No, she got put up.
Oh, I'm sorry, she got put. No.
Carolina
got put up.
You're right.
Right. No, but then she comes back in the Alabama. Well, it was a long meet.
I was going to say, it was a long summer for everybody.
But then she comes back in the Alabama, and I thought he left her too much to do. I think she should have been more involved
She didn't
there.
break that sharply that day.
Okay, well, fair enough. But to me, it was like the case of the three bears. One was too fast, one was too slow. Well, this was just right, and I think she's been the most consistent.
That was pretty good, Richie. But, yeah, and I agree. She has been, and she's been doing it all year. She started off at Fairgrounds. She wasn't a flash in the pan there. She didn't have everything go her way, but she still ran third in the Kentucky Oaks, and she shows up every time, and she's got the wins in some big races. I make her lead the division. I'll tell you something. I know I've been a fan of Calamity Kate. She's okay, Calamity Kate.
Like her,
Yes.
hard trier, overachiever too. Rarely goes off a short price, and pulled off, of course, that big upset in the Delaware Oaks back in the summertime.
Yeah, she was very good in here, outrunning the speeds, and she was unlucky in the Acorn. It'll be interesting to see what she does going forward. They're still not a super fast group, but they're a fun group.
Okay, I agree with that. Now, if it ended today, the 3-year-old filly season ended today.
Lady Eli.
Lady Eli's 3-year-old filly champion, or she didn't do enough?
I would make her 3-year-old champion because she's got the sentimental angle, and you know what? She's the best 3-year-old filly
So
we
much
saw.
better than
Yeah,
she was.
I'll tell you something right now. I think Cavorting is the second. If you're going to give it to somebody else, I'd give it to Cavorting. And if Cavorting wins the Breeders' Cup filly and mare sprint
She
against
gets
older
it.
horses,
She's gonna get it.
she probably will get
Yes.
it, and she should because she has been nothing short of sensational.
It's a good debate. I like
It is a good debate, and it goes back to Keir McLaughlin just firing on all cylinders as we wrap things up down at Parks with the 3-year-old sprinters in the Gallant Bob. And this recent winner of the Gallant Bob could have been yours a few months ago, I think, for $15,000 via the claim box in a maiden claiming race.
Richie and I put into claim the source 2 times ago for $15,000. It was a terrible break for us. We probably would have gotten the money in the Gallant Bob. Because I said, let's claim him to try to win the Gallant Bob. I just don't know what to say. Ramon Preciado, well, we are fans of his as a trainer. This is an amazing job. And I'll tell you what, he didn't get lucky to win.
No, this horse ran. He ran big. Limousine Liberal had his chance at him. This horse,
He held
I mean,
on.
I don't honestly. How do you make sense of the result? I mean, you really can't. Other than that, okay, he runs well at Parks, but he ran well at Parks for maiden 20.
Yeah,
Well,
maiden
well,
It was
15,
made
yeah,
in
but-
15, July 5th, right back off the claim for Preciado 20 days later. Wins by almost 17 with the buyer of 90. They step him up into a $25,000 starter allowance. He wins that by 9 with the buyer of 93, and he's only 5-1 on the line in the Gallant Bob because of it.
Well, they maybe favored the home team. The crowd wasn't going for it, but the morning line indicated the crowd, I guess, should have been smarter. I know I couldn't have had it.
Yeah, no kidding.
I couldn't find it, but I'm not done looking. Was he gelded somewhere in that interim? Is that something? Again, I have a hard time.
I have no idea. That's an interesting question.
Well,
they have some
they've
sort of
got
vague...
they've got him reported as being a gelding on July 25th,
you're right. He
the
was
same
gelded after
day
the claim.
he came back
So he was
off the claim.
Very good. Detective Migliore, right in the case.
I
Must be that he was gelded.
Again, I'm just reaching for straws because it's a little bit hard to come up with that result. But I guess we're a lot like a lot of people, the underbidder on Seattle Slew. We got outshook for him.
Right, everybody was the underbidder on Slew. Let's move on to the action at Churchill Downs. 24 races in the great state of Kentucky throughout Saturday. They were in action in the afternoon at Kentucky Downs, and of course running Downs after dark with the lights on. And it's a good-looking filly here, Super Majesty for Jerry Hollendorfer.
And I like what Alex Solis did. And I know he was the inside part of the speed, but 4 horses went, and Alex said, I'm riding the best horse, and I'm not sitting behind anybody. I am going to continue forward no matter how fast I have to go. It's a very nice filly for Jerry Hollendorfer. 12 showed up for $100,000, none in a grade 3 here. 6 showed up for $350 at Charlestown, but maybe Jerry Hollendorfer didn't want to go to Charlestown after what happened with Shared Belief.
Well, yeah, and I think you got to know your horse, who's going to handle those turns. I mean, the turns are the big factor at Charlestown. This filly, Super Majesty, didn't break particularly well, but like you said, he was committed to holding his position, and I want to see more riders do that.
I agree. You ride the best horse like you're riding the best horse, and that's exactly what Alex Solis did. Tell you what, this is a nice horse. She's not cavorting, but she's okay for Hollendorfer, for sure.
And she's only run 4 times. She's now 3 for 4. $400,000 2-year-old purchase by Super Saver out of a Go for Gin mare. You don't see his name too often these days. I do like seeing that. Ellen J. Foxwoods. It's Larry, Nancy, and Jamie Roth, and they have spent quite a bit of money $900 for Constellation. They had that Tapit first-time starter Labor Day. That was second. I think they paid 1.2 or 1.4 for
maybe
her,
even more.
and $400K for Super Majesty. It's good to see them, and I'm unfamiliar with the outfit as a whole, but it's good to see a new outfit making a big splash and spending quite a bit of money.
I agree. They're spending the money. You like to see them have success.
All right.
We need them to have success. We need people like that to support our industry.
All right, let's stay with the 3-year-old fillies. Right around 10:30 p.m. Saturday night, they were off and running around a bunch of turns in the Charlestown Oaks. Big, I'll send it to you off the break.
Hot City Girl, I love the ride by Jose Ortiz. Now, Sarah just wound up being no good anyway, but
he made sure of it.
He said, I'm taking the track away from you. This is what I'm doing. Everybody else adjusts around me, and I love when I see a rider do that. He came out with a plan, and he executed it.
I like it even more when I make a big bet on them. But I completely agree with you, Richie. I watched this race live, and it's the same thing. Jose said to Jose Felix, who's riding Sarah Sis, no, I'm boss here. He went out. The other guy let him go. And you know what? Honestly, this race was over.
Well, and that was the key moment in the race. 50, 60 yards out of the gate, he sees the race, and it was over.
No, he took advantage. And this was a horse that Richie and I had talked about in Trips and Traps after she ran sneaky well in the Bowery. She came back and got into an impossible pace duel in the Mother Goose, where she dueled with Embellish the Lace, who finished last, came back to win the Alabama. She hadn't run since that Mother Goose. I had actually liked her in the prioress. Now, she wasn't beating cavorting that day, but I didn't miss her in the entries in this race, and she was just much better than these horses.
Capping the top half of a New York bred exacta with Temperament Patty rallying and getting the place spot by a whisker over some 40-1 Chicago horse.
Well, you know what else about the Chicago horse? The rider was aggressive. He went after. He had a 40-1 shot. He wasn't sitting back and hoping he got lucky and sucked up for a piece. He went after Hot City Girl, got a much more aggressive ride than the favorite Sarah Sis did in here, and it paid off. He finished third with a horse that if he had sat back and done nothing early, would have gotten nothing.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. And Sarah Sis, again, she wound up not being any good on the night, but don't you have to give her more of a chance? You're inside position. Don't you have to, basically say, no, I'm not allowing you to come over on top?
I agree. I know you never would have let the other one go. Listen, it worked in my favor, but I can't argue with what you're saying, Richie. It's just too passive. Being aggressive has its rewards. It's not that it's going to work all the time, but it's got a lot more rewards than penalties.
And again, I would rather a rider make an aggressive mistake than be passive and be dictated, basically be victimized.
Victim, yep.
Right?
And we're seeing an evolution of Linda Rice's operation where she has picked up some high-profile, deep-pocketed owners, and one of them happens to be Sheila Rosenblum, who has stepped up her game big time on the heels of La Verdad. And by the way, this filly by City Zip, Hot City Girl, a younger half to La Verdad. That's some mare.
No, absolutely. And also on that NF's Destiny.
NF's Destiny.
There's
hard
three
hitter,
very fast,
yeah.
good sprinters in there, and it just shows you what Sheila Rosenblum had the real success with La Verdad. She's got a very nice 2-year-old. The one hasn't run back yet.
Champion of
the
the
Nile,
yep.
right? And then this horse as well, and she's spending her money in the game and having success.
Another person spending the money. We want to see them do well.
Good to see Jose Ortiz doing well as well. He rode in a couple different states on Saturday, got the money down in Maryland as well. We've got our little trip to Kentucky down, so stay with us. 5 stakes worth nearly $2 million this Saturday, less than a week away at Belmont Park. Joe Hirsch Turf Classic. Some of the best Americans and perhaps some Europeans will be throwing down in a key prep for the Breeders' Cup Turf. Got the Gallant Bloom, the Joe Hirsch, the Beldame, the Pilgrim, and the Vosburg. That is a card not to be missed. And I wonder if Private Zone quite quickly will be coming back for a three-peat in the Vosburg.
He'll either be running the Vosburg or running the Kelso. Wherever he runs, you want to see him race.
Yeah, we like him, Meg, don't we?
He's fun. I'd like to see him get 3. I don't think anybody's ever done that, the Vosburg.
Got to look that up, maybe by tonight's Insider. Let's get back on the road as we head, closing day, in fact, to Kentucky Downs, and the ladies are throwing it down in the ladies' turf, and this was a good finish between two solid out-of-towners.
And I'll tell you something, Corey Lannery didn't get any breaks at Saratoga and had a tough meet there. He's a good rider, and I tell you, he deserves half the purse for his ride on Kiss Moon. He did everything right, Richie.
He really did, and I agree with you. He was unlucky, and in Saratoga, when you come in as a rider that doesn't ride in New York full-time, you're up against it already. If you get off to a slow start, you're not going to get any support from the local trainers, and there's just too many good riders to go around. You need to come out winning and then build on that success. It's not that the guy can't ride. He just didn't get lucky early, and then he wasn't getting the opportunities. And then what happens is your confidence level goes in the dumpster, and a rider needs confidence.
No, I agree. Had all the confidence in the world there with a perfect ride. Sunset Glow has had a disappointing year after running second to Lady Eli at Keeneland. And Wesley Ward's troubles at Kentucky Downs continue, where I believe he got shut out for the meet.
To be fair, she did win she won the Grade 1 Del Mar debutante last year. You're 100% right. She has not moved forward since her 2-year-old season. And has he not been winning at Kentucky
Well,
Downs?
I know he was 0 for 16 when I looked at the PPs yesterday, and I don't believe that he had any success at the meet. He was shut out, and he ran some horses that were short prices.
He runs horses everywhere, doesn't he?
He does.
And
He's
not
everywhere.
just in North America, all over the place.
And that's a good segue to Mark Casse, who's got the big operation up in Canada. We saw him with the string at Saratoga, and he was getting another stakes win with Return to Grace in the first running of the Dueling Grounds Oaks, purse at $200,000, as this was the 12th and final stakes of a very rich 5-day meet at Kentucky Downs.
I'll tell you one thing. This horse was best. I mean, she was 4 wide on the first turn. She was 3-4 wide the second turn, and she just blew this field away. I mean, I feel like Joe Rocco was a bit of a passenger on her. It's a very nice performance. These aren't killers in there, but I thought she ran very well, Richie.
No, she really did. There was some traffic jam inside, but
the one horse is in trouble.
Yeah, I don't know that it mattered much. I mean, Return to Grace was very, very good, and Mark Casse years ago trained for Calumet when it was still the Devil Red and blue colors of Calumet. Well, nice to see him with a Calumet horse, although it's a new look Calumet.
Well,
the
they
black
sold
and
the silks.
gold.
They sold the silks to TNT Stud.
Yeah.
I hate that. I get it, but I hate it.
I know. Brad Kelly, in fact, the owner now, the now owner of Calumet Farm. English Channel out of Golden Attraction with this horse, Return to Grace. I remember Golden Attraction with D. Wayne Lucas. We hope D. Wayne's feeling okay, and we'll turn the page. We get on to the action down in Maryland. Couple of turf races with big pots to bring you, and we'll move on to Laurel as we pick up the Commonwealth Derby, $400,000. One go, all go. Sprung the upset at 35-1.
This is the former Virginia Derby. They let this horse walk on the front end. Slower pace even than the other race in here. This is an odd horse that out of nowhere won a race last time in Indiana Downs, only be disqualified, comes back and bosses him on the front end. Fundamental got a great ride from Jose Ortiz, who had a tremendous day yesterday, and he did everything he could to be second. Thought there was some drifting from Force to Pass for him a little bit. This is not the Force to Pass we saw with the Belmont Derby.
No, not at all. We were talking about it earlier. He was acting up in the gate, and I always feel like a horse is trying to tell you something when they act up in the gate. Like something's not quite right. Most of the time, something shows up eventually. And now he's had a little bit of gate issues at the last few starts, but one go, all go. Well, he's the only one who went. And again, it underscores the fact that speed is always dangerous.
Yeah, I agree. It just seemed like there was some passivity. I don't understand why Gallery wasn't more aggressive in this race. The one race he won, when he pulled that upset at Belmont Park late in the meeting, he did it because they were aggressive and they wired a field without any pace. Go Around probably had a little more speed. I think Go Around coming back just 2 weeks after the Saranac, he was not as good in this race.
All right, fair enough. 72.40, 19 even, and 8.60 your win play show prices on One Go, All Go, as we certainly head to Mr. Speaker with the Black and Cherry taking his show on the road. And oh no, I apologize. All right, we've got this maiden special weight. Did we just skip a race?
I think we missed the Mr. Speaker race, but we'll talk about the maiden race from Belmont Park.
All right, fair enough. This was Saturday's opener at 12:55, and a good-looking Tappet Firster took all the play here as we pick it up from the starting gate.
Boy, this horse broke sharply, and that was the difference in this race, because Seymour Deeney didn't get left, just wasn't as aggressive out of the gate. I think it was a rider issue with the horse, but Mohayman was able to control early, so the slow first quarter, but they ran fast the rest of the way, Richard.
They really did. The first quarter, but then the separation comes in the second quarter. And, when I watched this, and I watched it a couple times because I was questioning whether King Krantz wasn't aggressively ridden enough. He was riding him. He was trying to keep up. He tapped him on the shoulder. If you watch the head-on, he tapped him on the shoulder 3 or 4 times on the backside, trying to keep him interested. I just don't think he was able to keep up, especially when they went the second quarter in 22-3.
And the other thing, Richie, he came home in 23 and a fifth or so, maybe a little bit more than that. He's supposed to be able to get it done, but the horses up front weren't stopping. It was a slow first quarter, but a very fast second quarter. This is a trio of talented colts. We saw a dearth of talented colts in Saratoga. The hopeful winner ran well. These horses are good.
They're very good, and it belies the fact that they're 11 lengths back to the fourth-place finisher. They put so much separation in between them. I think this is one of those races, Jason and Andy, we're going to look back on and go, wow, after they've accomplished more as they go on. Remember that maiden race at Belmont that day? Because I think these three are very talented.
This might just be the best 2-year-old maiden race we've run all season long in the Big Apple for the boys.
I think it is, Jason. And the winner is a $2.2 million colt, which is rare to see from Just Whistle Dixie to Dam, of course. And, of course, it's a Tappet because all the good horses are sired by Tappet. And the second horse is a $900,000 2-year-old for Linda Rice, for an owner that we weren't familiar with, but I love the name Seymour Dini.
You buy Bernardini, who's picked things up in a big way over the last month, but a good name. Linda Rice will be favored with Seymour Dini next time out. Mo Heyman, we'll see if he makes his debut in a stakes race.
We'll see where they go with him next. I'm sure they'll be looking at some big races. And King Krantz, unlike the others, $95,000 for this one for the Zayats, and John Terranova, also a runner.
All right, let's wrap things up. We'll get you back to Maryland, Laurel Park on Saturday afternoon with the Commonwealth Cup. Back, as I was saying, to the black and cherry of Mr. Speaker, who took his show on the road, and a busy Jose Ortiz, who won the Charlestown Oaks race with Hot City Girl, but earlier in the day got the money for Shug with Mr. Speaker.
He got his position going forward, Richie, put him in the perfect spot, gave him the perfect ride. I'm a Mr. Speaker fan. I hate it when people knock him. I'm glad to see him win.
Yeah, I'm a fan as well. And speaking of Jose Ortiz, it does a lot for a young rider when they ship and win. When you go into unfamiliar territory and you get it done, it does a lot for your confidence, and it makes you a better rider going forward. Some guys don't do well shipping because they're in a new group of riders, new surroundings. I think this shows that Jose Ortiz, we know he's talented. This speaks of his maturity.
And I'll tell you something, I don't know the exact numbers, but sitting with you and doing the show, and you are so on top of how the riders are doing, it feels like with about a couple weeks left in Saratoga, you started saying Jose Ortiz's name a lot more, and I think he's been riding sensationally.
2 win and 3 win days were the norm for him, it seemed, over the last couple weeks upstate. And even looking at his 2 stakes wins on this show in isolation, now you're talking a combined $600,000 in purses.
And I'll say something else. In some ways, it might be the second place finish on Fundamental. Is it Fundamental or
Fundamental?
Yeah, Fundamental. I think that might have been the best ride of all of the ones he did. He did what he had to do with Hot City Girl, but Fundamental was the worst. Didn't have to get anything in that race, and I thought he gave a perfect ride.
Well, it's interesting because a rider's lot in life. There were plenty of races I rode that I finished second, third, fourth, and got criticized. And I rode a perfect race, and there were a lot of races I rode that I won that I didn't ride particularly well, and they said, oh, great ride. It's always result-oriented.
Yeah, frequently, there's just too result-oriented, too much credit for winning, and too much blame for losing.
Well, we'll have the 5-pack, the Saturday 5-pack for you on this show a week from now. The Joe Hirsch, the Gallant Bloom, the Pilgrim, the Vosburg, and the Beldame. A lot of history and prestige. We like these grade ones at beautiful Belmont Park during the fall as we head into autumn. And we'll say goodnight here on the National Racing Report. Thanks again for stopping by.